the people behind the Disney's Twitter account, as well as the couple of individuals that still call themselves Star Wars fans at this point, are bewildered that people are upset over this small amount of censorship, where Disney decided to use a previous costume that Leia wore in another movie in order to make her more presentable to your mother, I assume. And the reason why people are upset is twofold. Number one, it is incredibly disrespectful for the work of art that Star Wars is. Because Star Wars is not just a movie. It is a cultural phenomenon. And Disney is not responsible for making this. Actual talented people made this. So what Disney is saying is that their work isn't good enough. Like, their work isn't up to standard, so they made it better. And the second thing, I want to point out the moral purity that is absolutely sickening at this point. When Star Wars came out, this wasn't a problem. I haven't heard any soccer mom at the time, or even the most religious and pious person imaginable, having a problem with someone going to see Leia. Or with the Leia's toys. Like, we're talking about activist groups, like the Million Moms groups, which would write concerned letters whenever someone used the word damn in a commercial. Okay, like that level of moral busybodiness. But this, from Disney, is to a whole another level. Like, they have managed to become more moralizing and more hashtag concerned than the most pious Christians of America. Furthermore, it kind of reminds me to what the Romans used to do when they were making ushikushi statues of Lady Venus. You know, they were making these beautiful, buxom lady statues that later on, after the Roman Empire fell, the Christians felt the need to cover them for religious reasons. And this is pretty much what is happening here. Now, the joke is that we live in a time where you have Twitch, and women not only just look like this on Twitch, but they use filters, they use cosmetic surgery, they use various ways to pretty themselves up. So that's what you get on Twitch. And that's what you get when you go out clubbing. And that's what you get when you're in the real world. But in fantasy, in fiction, you have to present it as this, because otherwise it's problematic. I mean, does this make any logical sense? And for some reason, you shouldn't complain about it. If you complain about it, you're going to get people on Twitter upset. Because it's like, oh, well, you're a misogynist or whatever. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can't even define what a woman is. Shut the fuck up. So this is, you know, the new art style that is being pushed. And furthermore, it takes away from the story. Like, the whole purpose of Leia being dressed like this was incredibly demeaning. Right? Like, she is a princess, she was from royalty, and she goes to the lowest level of human society, that of being... And she goes from a privileged status in society to one of the most unprivileged status throughout the history of mankind, that of a slave. And a sex slave at that. And she manages to fight her own struggle. Like, she manages to get rid of that situation by herself. So that's what makes Leia heroic. That is why people were cheering at her, and they're buying her merchandise, and they're buying her toys even today. It was due to that hero's journey. Like, had she not been through that, she would have probably been another Mary Sue, right? A big part of what makes the character awesome would be missing. Because she had to display a lot of bravery in doing that. She had to display a lot of skill in order to assassinate the Hutt, which made not only her life miserable, but other people's lives miserable. So it's the hero's journey that is completely lacking in the new Disney movies. Like, Leia, like their Mary Sue of a character from the last Star Wars movies, doesn't have any compatible situation where she's even in any remote danger, so that the audience can feel that, well, she's like a human being. Because everything she has is a quality. And they can't make good movies and good stories because of that. Now, what's also interesting, and this is just a by the way, why did they have to also modify Han's face And why does it look like that? I mean, Han's face looks just so bizarre in this new adaptation. Same with Leia, if you think about it. Like, this one is the actual actress and her face. And what Walt Disney did is just completely different. It's almost like it's a different person. I don't know what's going on here, but a lot of people are noticing it. And, you know, like, they also did this before where they removed the gun from a poster. Like, whatever cultural statement happens to be at the time, like that was, I believe, like 2 years ago when they released the Han Solo movie. There was another gun debate raging in the United States. And because of that, Disney removed the gun from the poster. And now that you look back at it, it's so fucking ridiculous. But at the time, oh, it's sensible. I mean, it's so weird. Like, the previous Star Wars is a timeless classic. You can watch the movies now. And sure, you know, they may look a little quirky and they might not have aged 100% well. But they're still serviceable and they're a lot better than most of the movies that come out today. Because they're timeless. But nowadays, like, oh, every single time you see one of these companies make a new movie, they say, oh, well, you know, we have to take into account of a more modern audience and modern sensibilities. And I'm thinking, like, okay, so if hip-hop would be hip right now, like, every single movie would need to have hip-hop in it? I mean, a couple of years ago, I guess every single movie should have had dubstep in it, right? Because dubstep was popular at the time, and it was modern at the time, so let's put it in. It's such a horrible way of creating art. Like, you're not creating art. That's the problem. That's why my channel is called Lack of Entertainment. You can't entertain people like this. Because it's not art. It's corporate drivel. And by the way, what's wrong with art being offensive? Like, that's the whole point. You know what this is happening to Leia is offensive, and because Jabba the Hutt did this to her, you hate Jabba the Hutt more, so that when he actually dies on screen, it's cathartic for the audience. Like, the audience members were excited when they found Leia managing to defeat Jabba. Because it built up to that point. Like, it was a negative character with a lot of negative traits. Otherwise, it's like, man, you know, it's like when Snoke died in the new Star Wars. I didn't feel a thing. I was like, yeah, okay, well, I guess they got rid of him, and that's interesting. Like, Snoke does nothing in order to gather the audience hatred. Like, for example, Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Like, Joffrey was a really good example of how he does a lot of offensive things. And because of that, the audience hates him. And when he finally dies at the Purple Wedding, everyone is cheering and everyone is happy. Because it's a payoff. But I guess they just don't know how to build bad characters anymore. Like, for them, a bad character is Ben Solo, which represents toxic masculinity. And even Ben Solo, like, I didn't hate him. It's like, oh, well, he killed Han, so okay, well. But that's it, you know. Meanwhile, Jabba the Hutt was a real villain at the time. When I was a kid and I watched Star Wars, I really disliked him. But anyway, right, let me know what you guys think. Do you find it inappropriate for people to dislike the Disney censorship? I hope I articulate why it is, because it's not like the way the critics try to say, oh, it's a knee-jerk reaction, oh, it's the people on the internet, they're getting upset at everything. It's like, no, it's a little bit deeper than that. You're destroying an American cultural icon, that's what you're doing. It's a classic movie that even people from the furthest corners of the earth have heard about Star Wars. And there's a reason for that. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.